This is Gmtv.
Hello, once again. Welcome to One-on-One on Gmtv. And as always, my name is Dr. Gabriel Okonji, your host. Every time we invite a guest on the show, we always bring special people with special call and special assignment. And today's episode is one that will intrigue you. We have a missionary who God used right in the mission field to give an exclusive right to speak the language of the people without an interpreter. You know, this is one rare opportunity that you are going to meet. And this person is a man with so many parts, very intriguing and very, very lovely and nice to be with. I'm talking about no other person than Evangelist Peter Nnajiofor. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, sir.
It's good to have you, sir.
Thank you so much.
So how do you say hello in Brazil?
We have many ways of saying hello. Hello is oi.
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 So
That's
oi.
O-I.
O-I.
Yeah.
Oi to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. So, sir, may we meet you and know you one-on-one?
Okay, my name's Ikechukwu Peter Nnajiofor. I presently reside in Brazil where I do ministry. But of course, I am not limited to South America. I also have mission fields, in Africa and around the world. So that's basically who I am.
Okay, now your growing up days. Tell us a little bit about your personality, family you were born into, things you went through as a child.
Okay. I was born into a Catholic family because, in fact, I grew up as a very zealous Catholic boy. I was a mass servant. They call them altar boys, and I had secured the ambition to really further my Catholicism pursuit in becoming a reverend father.
A Catholic priest. As usual.
And I was this deep neck into Catholic that I didn't believe that there is anything that could take me out of the system. Well, that's just on the part of the religious angle. I studied both my kindergarten, nursery, primary, secondary, university in Niger State. And that is the city I was born. Mina is the capital of Niger State. That's in the northern part of Nigeria. So all of my study, all of my upbringing was in the northern part of Nigeria. And that informs the reason I speak Hausa very well. I understand Hausa language very well. I did my youth service in Kogi State. It is still, I don't know, it is politically called
Middle Belt.
It's not Middle Belt. It's politically called Northern Nigeria. But I think ideally it should be Middle Belt. But they still classify it as the North Central. They call it the North Central. But I think it should be Middle Belt. And that was where I served. I served in a community called Ugugu, in Olamaboro local government of Kogi State. That was the first time I left that environment. I mean, the northern, the core north. Niger State is core north.
Yes.
I believe it's part of
it's part. Yes.
That was the first time I left home, because it's been Mina, secondary school, university, then until I went to Kogi State to serve. And, my evangelistic outreach, I was actually started. I started before my service year, but, when I went to do my 1-year youth service, I now discovered the need, for rural evangelism.
Now, sir, before you get into your evangelistic work, let's know when you got the call, unless you were called straight from the womb, but let's know when you got born again. What was your encounter? What was your life before you became born again, and your life from that point?
Okay, so basically there was a U-turn that happened around 1998. And the reason for that was because a set of missionaries came from the East. And I don't know, I believe by God's providence, they decided to establish their movement in our home.
Your home?
Yes, in our home. That is a Pentecostal church. Remember I said...
core Catholic background.
Core Catholic background.
Yes.
But somehow, maybe because of situations around my father's business, then he became open to Pentecostalism, became open to prayers and all of that. And so somehow that opportunity crept in. And when these people came, they came from Umuahia. From Umuahia is in Abia State, right?
Yes.
So they came and my father agreed to welcome them, have their church in our home.
As a man of peace.
They began that movement. We used to have a commercial school in front of in our house. Our compound is a very big compound. My father had a commercial school. The compound is part of the school. Then we have an outside bacha where it's also an extension of the school.
Cool.
So by this time, that school was already... The school does not run on Sunday, of course. So they do their service on Sundays in front of that bacha. So somehow, whether we liked it or not, we became part of the movement. That was the first time, the prophecy about my call came. So I began to walk. I started as a worker in that church, We began to walk, run errands and all of that. And in fact, that was where I started preaching.
But at this time, are you giving your life to Christ?
If by 1999,
yes,
by 1999, I was already committed to God. But at that elementary level of 98, it's just that euphoria,
surface, yes.
The euphoria of these people have come from. You come, you feel the presence of God. There's that emotional engagement. But by 1999, I was already preaching. You understand?
Wow.
I was already preaching because, of course, we the pastors and everything, we've been established then. So, to a large extent, that was when I got to know God, and I knew that there was something about me doing the work of God. By 99, it was clear, of course. Then we continued. I got to the university in that same year.
Yeah, okay.
I think early 2000 now, because I graduated by 2004. We had 1 year strike like that.
Yes.
So that environment created for me the opportunity to be able to search out what the will of God was for my life.
Okay.
And so as early as 1999, I was already preaching in the church.
Wow.
I was already a preacher.
Wow.
Then 2000, by 2001, I was already a member. I was already a member of the Living Faith. We established what they call the WSU today. The WSU is the Winners Campus Fellowship.
Winners Campus
Fellowship. We established it. I was the one. We were about 3 key members that established it.
Wow.
Because we used to have FCS. I was not. Then because of our affinity with Living Faith, we felt that
Living Faith Church.
The Living Faith Chapel. Winners Chapel.
Okay.
We felt that since we have a lot of members in this university, why not establish the fellowship? That's how we started the fellowship, and that fellowship is still on till today.
Wow.
It's called the WSU, the Winners, except it has been renamed. But as at the time we were there, it was called the Winners Campus Fellowship, WCF. WCF, sorry, it's not WS, WCF, Winners Campus Fellowship. Now, what that did was that, we are now into serious missions. Serious, when I talk about mission, it's not, we will go from Boso, the school is situated in Boso, we'll go to the police barracks in almost another side of the town, hire buses to go evangelize and bring people to the church.
Wow.
That was the extent of the mission work we started then.
Wow.
We go to, then our leader then, the first president of the WCF, his name is John Alta. We started a movement, an intercessory movement. We meet every Wednesday to pray. between the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 p.m. every Wednesday, whether you have lecture in the morning, it doesn't matter.
Not 10 p.m.
10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Wow.
Every Wednesday. So he became the first WCF president. The guy is from a village called Kuta in, so he used to take us to do rural crusadings and all of that. So that's where those, ruggedity in terms of evangelism and all that started. It began from our school activities, our university.
Yes, 7 hours of radical prayers. Then, of course, you become a radical soul winner. So
that happened, and then, of course, like I told you, we were going for massive evangelism. We used to go to rural areas then to preach. Once in a while we go to rural.
But you guys you're not afraid of, and this is because it's
we were not
north,
afraid.
or this was in the east.
We weren't afraid.
You were not afraid of
and
all
the hostility. The hostility as at that time is not as it is today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The hostility. But of course, we were met with so many confrontations. Like there was a particular day we went to preach in a house, in a police barracks. The woman came out and told us, mark this house. Any day you come back here, I'll pour you hot water.
Wow.
Well, that didn't
not deter you.
We still continued, we continued doing that until I graduated from FUT. So that is just a brief, that's a synopsis of how that 1999 until 2004, it was a massive period of, intimacy, prayers, evangelism, all kinds of it. I mean, it was a remarkable moment in my life. It was with that fire I now went for my youth service in 2005. So when I went, instead of quenching the fire, we continued because already there is a background we've been able to build. I've had experience in rural mission already, because of that John Altar.
Yes.
Then, of course, we've had background in prayer, intercessory prayer, because of that Wednesday drilling,
7 hours
prayer drilling, 7 hours every Wednesday. We didn't miss it for anything. Then, of course, and that background in evangelism, because we go from
village to village,
from city to city, from one area to another area, gathering people, bringing them to church.
So mobilization also, you had understanding of it.
So we had understanding on mobilization, how to mobilize people for programs. So all of those things collectively now, molded me. Yes. And then I was able to implement that. When I came now to serve, eventually I was made the rural rugged, the evangelism secretary.
For youth service.
When I was serving. So we had to go for rural, there's something we call rural rugged.
Yes, I heard that.
Rural rugged. We went to a village called Alagalani. I can't forget it. That was the first time I prayed for a crippled girl that was over 4 years. She stood up. The girl stood up and did not just walk. She stood up and started running.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Then my God, I still remember. Then there was one.
She stood up and started running.
She stood up
instantly.
She was afraid. Because when prayer was prayed,
yes,
she got agitated.
Was she a Christian or she
Muslim? It's a Muslim infested area. Muslims, all of them. But one thing is that's why we have to go for power. Because power does not discriminate.
Wow.
When there's power, it doesn't matter whether
does not discriminate.
Whether you are Hindu, whether you are anything. People are looking for solution. People are tired.
Yes, sir.
They're looking for solution. What you need, you see, the reason why we are still doing all these things by moonlight and doing
by moonlight Christianity
is because of the lack of substance. Okay, look at the kind of miracles that took place in camp meeting. One of the ladies that testified said she's a Catholic. Did her Catholicism stop her from coming to receive miracle?
No.
She came and she was healed. So the reason for all of these things is lack of power. We need to go back. Now, I'm going to tell, that's a story I like to tell. And I believe I don't know whether it was part of the book I wrote, this particular
story, event. Yes.
This particular event. If it's not part of it, I'm going to do a book.
No, share with us now.
Now, we went to that village, Alagalani is the name. the village is 95% Muslim.
Wow.
But they had that Jesus heals. They had that Jesus can open the eye of the blind. They had that we had made serious noise before that publicity, and the publicity was based on the miraculous. That if you have somebody that is sick, you bring the person. These people have gone to hospital. They don't even have aid for medical stuffs and all of that. So we came to tell them that somebody is.
They don't have finances. They don't have support.
There's a man called Jesus that can heal them and do all that.
Wow.
So when it was the day for the crusade, everywhere was jam-packed. Whether you are Muslim, it doesn't matter. Whether you are idol worshiper, they were there. So this girl was born, this small girl was born crippled. The mother brought the girl. I began to pray for this girl. The girl got agitated and was crying and then stood up and ran.
Out of fear.
Stood up and ran. The whole village. Then they brought a girl that the girl was about 15, 16 years.
Wow.
Born deaf and dumb.
Wow.
I ministered to her. She shouted, Jesus, the whole city.
A Muslim.
In fact, I want to live. You see, in the euphoria of those manifestations, everybody, they now brought somebody that was crippled. You know, some of them were still skeptical. They were still skeptical about having doubt. So when the news, and in the village, it flies like wildfire. See, this girl that is dumb is now hearing and speaking.
And then crippled.
They brought somebody on wheelbarrow, crippled.
Wheelbarrow?
Yes, the man crippled. I pray for him. The man started walking.
Jesus.
I mean, it was a festival of that. That was when I discovered that if you want to see God walk, go to the field.
Go to the field. If you want to see, there's power in mission.
I've discovered there are things that God may never do in a closed environment like this. We are the same minister. Just look at Brian Bongi, for example. He does ministers' conference and all that. God uses him so much. But you cannot compare the level of the manifestations
in the
miraculous in the field
and when it's
an indoor program.
Yes, sir.
It doesn't, there's no comparison. You can't compare it.
Yes.
So that was when I discovered that God is in the field. God, if you want to see God, go to the field.
Go to the field.
He's in a hurry to walk. That was how we won more than half of that city.
Wow.
I remember a young girl coming to tell me, say, see, young man, be very careful. Take care of your life. You're very great. Oh my God, I believe that one of these days I will still, God will
to bring you back to the show
to see that young lady, And she told me, say, be very careful. See, God will use you very much. You see, have you heard of Riambonke? She asked me. And of course, I've heard of Riambonke. Then I told her. She said, you have to be very careful.
Wow. And I think we're already hearing it. This is Apostle Ikechukwu. We have heard your earlier experience in Nigeria. And now let's get to hear what propelled you to go to South America and the South American adventure, spiritual adventure that you are going through now. Yeah.
Your question is very good. You used a word that is very interesting because you said, what propelled you to go to? A lot of things can really propel one to travel out.
Yes.
Ranging from economic need, trying to change your financial, status and all of that can lead. But the truth of the matter is that, you see, I never wanted to live outside of Nigeria. That was never my ambition. I never had such. I would prefer to go and come back, But of course, even during my service year, no, not my service year per se. I think I had finished serving and I came back to that same village to run a crusade. And a lady in that place prophesied that she saw me ministering among white people and all that. That prophecy was already there and all that. So I went to, I was working as a site engineer, right? I had worked for Brains and Hammers. In fact, we were the pioneer staffs of Brains and Hammers. The first project we did, one of the first projects we did was in Abuja, was in Mina, the 500 housing unit in the MIUShishi housing unit. I alone supervised about 30 buildings there.
Wow. So it's not like it was a financial crisis thing.
No, it wasn't.
Because you were comfortable.
No, then I was earning 50,000 naira. 2007. That's not small money. Check it. 50,000 naira in 2007. How much do you think is equivalent now? That's a whole lot of money.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because I know that time if I collect my salary, 50,000 is so much. I don't finish it before another one comes.
Wow.
And then I was an assistant pastor in a church, God's Grace Foundation Ministry. You know, so from there I went on to help my sister do some projects, some building projects in Kontogora. Then did some of her projects in urban shelter. Then I was now also doing my private building projects. I was working for a member of the House of Assembly in Mina then. I was handling his building. Then, when one of my friends told me that we need to visit the field in East Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya. Kenya was our arrival point, Nairobi, you know. So, and I wasn't, where this kind of mission is not the one the church gets the ticket for you and all of that. You are the one that will have to
generate everything yourself.
So I was having 120,000. I was paid. That was the money I was paid for the project I was doing at that time. That's still a whole lot of money, you know. Imagine when flight was around 120,000.
Just to Kenya.
Kenya. Then
round trip.
That was 2011.
Now you can't do that with that amount.
No, it's not possible.
You can't even fly from Asaba to Lagos with that amount.
With that, 2011, I paid 120,000. So when I went to East Africa, we visited a lot of churches. You know, still this rural. Some of them were rural churches and all that. Did all of that. That was where I met Evangelist Douglas of blessed memory. He's late now. I think he died 2 years ago. With one Paulo, who is still alive, I believe. The man, out of all the people that came, he just said, I'm interested in you. I want to bring you to Brazil. You know, I just felt that, okay, this is not. Before I knew what was happening, he had sent me an invitation letter. That was around mid-2011, right?
Yes.
He had sent me an invitation letter, and by the end we stayed like 1 month in that program. I went back to Nigeria. Then around December, I just applied for the visa. When I applied, I was pastoring a church in Mina. You know, this thing is the story is just so.
It's kind of twisted.
Yeah. So I was pastoring a church in Mina. Then I was in the shop of one of my members when they sent me a message, an SMS, that my visa had been approved. Called that woman Mommy Prophet. I was in her shop. So I looked at it, I showed her, I said, she rejoiced, everybody was happy. I said, okay, at least I'll go to Brazil and come back. 2011, right? I didn't go because the ticket was 430,000. I said, that's too cheap. It can't happen now again. You can't get that. I looked at, there was no way to raise that money. Remember, the idea was to go and preach and
come back. Yes.
So I looked around. I had a rover. I bought that rover when I did a project one building project in somewhere in Benue State. I put it on sale. Nobody was buying. Nobody was coming to buy it. I looked at it. I said, Lord, is this your will? If this is your will, then eventually when the visa will still need 3 months and then expire. So I had like 1 week for the visa to expire. Miraculously, somebody from Benue said I should bring the car. I went, I sold the car, I think 460,000. My ticket was 430,000. That was just the ticket money. And thank God that, you see, sometimes when certain disappointments happen, be happy.
Yes.
Because the person I was going for to help me get money, later on, the kind of thing that happened would have messed up the whole thing. The whole program would have been that it was man that helped me and all of that. You know, a lot of
and that is why God never allowed
that money to come through that
person.
So I went. When the visa now finally, when the ticket now finally came out, and that problem arose. A great man of God from here went to Brazil. They turned him back.
Wow.
There was a problem happening in Brazil that time. Then the man who invited me to East Africa, he had gone to Brazil like 2 times, 3 times to do program. He went again. They sent him back.
Wow.
So the evangelist called me and said, "Don't come.
Don't bother. The signals here is not good."
He said, "Don't come. The signal is
not good at all.
I said, "Don't worry, I'm coming."
You still insisted.
I said, "I've bought the ticket. I'm going." See, the thing is that I believe God has given me the gift of faith.
Yes.
So when I don't bother about these kind of things. When no matter who it is that was rejected, I will go and enter.
Yes.
That was how I traveled. When I entered, nobody asked me a question. I entered. The first point of entry was Rio de Janeiro. So I entered. Nobody asked me anything. Nobody asked me any question. I did that program in 2012. That was 2012 now. Went, came back, went again. I think I went 2 times that year. Then by 2013, I took our theological college to that place. I went with 2 of our pastors. One of them was eventually sent back. The other one entered, Pastor George and Pastor Ame. Pastor Ame was not given entry.
Access.
He was sent back. I came back. By 2014, God told me, "I'm sending you to South America for an apostolic mission." Several confirmations came. In fact, then people were discovering, is it Brazil? They don't know Brazil. Many people don't know Brazil even till now. They don't know the country. They don't know the potential of the country. Some people say, is it our country? We don't know about it. It's only football we hear about them. That was how I went to Brazil for the first time to stay.
This time
to stay.
Not visiting.
But the miracle is that, before that time, I had to send my wife in 2013 to go and give birth to our second born, Fernando. Before she went, she was already 9 months pregnant. It was not possible for her to travel by flight, But I insisted. I said, let her go. Since God is saying, let her go. I knew I had God to take her to that place. By the time she got to the airport, they subjected her to run a test.
Based on their policy.
So if the pregnancy is above 7 months, I've lost my money. Can't fly. When she went for the test, 2 things happened. It's either the age of the child reduced in the womb or the machine malfunctioned.
The machine became faulty.
2 things. Because the result came out and said the child was 7 months. Only me and my wife
know that the baby is long. It was already 9 months due.
Why? Once there is an assignment, once God deploys you, once God is sending you, then He also backs you up.
Wow.
That was how. Now, this made me to enter Brazil legally. But I don't believe in you are going for mission, you want to go and do wuru to get paper. God probably is not the one sending you.
You're the one sending yourself.
You're the one sending yourself. Because why will you go and do fake marriage to go and get paper? It's not. God is not the one sending you. So I got there. She got there, delivered. Then the child, of course, is a citizen. Through that now, my wife could get residence, permanent residence.
PR.
Then me, I came also and I applied.
I got your PR.
So by 2014 August, I went with my whole family.
Wow.
So that was how we began
mission
in Brazil. We were living in one room we were using the public toilet of the church. It's very, very difficult, situation. But because God was the one that sent us, we had to bear all of those discomforts and everything. And today, to God be the glory, we have done massive, when I say massive kingdom investment around Africa and the world. And Brazil has been greatly impacted. What we are doing is massive. Very soon you are going to hear about a project. We are bringing a project, and majorly we are doing that project with DP. It's a serious project.
Wow.
Serious project that is about to be bettered. All of this because of obedience. We heeded to God's voice, went to Brazil, and, the doors massively opened. And to shock you, I began to not speak. I began to preach in Portuguese miraculously.
That part I would like to hear.
I was invited for a program. Normally, my communication was with interpreters.
Yes.
I didn't have a strange... You just imagine you just landing in Brazil and hearing people speaking Portuguese. That was my own case. That was the case. Remember what I said, though?
Yes.
That I went in 2014.
Yes.
Now, by 2015, I think it was by August of 2014 to August of 2015 is 1 year.
Yes.
So in less than 2 years, it was about 1 year and some months I began to preach in Portuguese. How could that have happened? Because even if I was to study
Portuguese,
I would just be maybe fluent enough to communicate with people, not to carry microphone and preach.
Basic communication.
Just check it now. There are languages you can speak now, but you can't even preach.
Exactly.
Like me now, I'm Igbo. I speak Igbo, but I can't preach in Igbo language. It will be difficult for me to preach in Igbo language. But I preach in Portuguese. Now, my interpreter disappointed me. The night before the 12 midnight, I thought it was 12 midnight, he called me, said he's not going again. I called the pastor, sent the pastor a message that, well, this meeting can't hold again because my interpreter
has refused to come.
He said, just come.
And you were paying him, not like you were not paying him.
Yes, now he was being paid for every message. For every message he interprets, he has his own percentage. He's paid for that. The church pays him. If God did it, God orchestrated that disappointment. Now, when I got there, the reason I even went was the pastor persuaded me that let it not be like it's a scam. And we told them we are bringing in a foreign preacher and all that.
Yes.
Just come and show your face. Let it be now that it is interpreter that disappointed. We'll be okay. At least our integrity will be
intact.
Will be intact. Now, I got there. The challenge was, what do you do now? But God persuaded me to go to the microphone and go and preach. Now, Paul said something. Why is it incredible to you that God who gives life can raise the dead? Why are you shocked? I will say God can raise the dead. Because many Christians still doubt this testimony. Yes, many Christians. I was saying something yesterday. I said, if a babalawo comes now and say, or a witch comes to us now and tells us a story of how she disappeared from Nigeria to London, is it not a normal thing? Are we not going to agree? Are we not going to believe?
We believe.
But let the pastor say it. He says he's lying.
He's lying.
So we tend to believe Satan more than God. That's the tragedy of this generation. So that was where I began to speak Portuguese without going to school. Till today, I preach in Portuguese. Miraculously, the language was downloaded. God gave me the capacity and the ability to not just speak, how are you? I want to eat. What is your name? That's not the one I'm talking about. It's easy for somebody to learn that kind of Portuguese and communicate. I said, preaching to the congregation.
Wow.
That was how I started.
Wow.
I began to preach till today.
Wow.
Of course, you know that, even when God is working, our mind is still at work. It gets perfect. It keeps getting
better and better. Yes.
So, but the ability to preach was downloaded that day.
Wow. So that means that scripture that Paul said in 1 Corinthians chapter 14 says, if I speak in tongues of angels and in tongues of men. So that means that you downloaded a language
of Portuguese
that you never...
I never learned
in anywhere.
And I've never ever attended any Portuguese class.
And you still haven't gone to tomorrow?
Till tomorrow, I've not. Wow. And I'm not interested in.
Wow.
Why
you crossed the hurdle already. Wow.
I don't need to learn.
So even the preacher man even has his own experience of a miracle.
I have a friend. I have friends in Brazil that have stayed for like maybe 20, 25 years. It was when they saw
what God did through you
preaching that they now
started exercising.
Let's begin to exercise. We're still using interpreters.
So that became the standard to actually push this.
So the point here now is still the same matter we are talking about. When you want to see God, in action, go to the field. When you don't place it, just like what DP said yesterday, he said one of the ways to actually make this indwelling Spirit of God find expression is to place a demand. You have what the man said. He said the Spirit of God is perambulating, seeking vocation to find expression. So there are many of us that we do not know our possibilities because we have not placed a demand on the Spirit. Wow. So that's the testimony of how I began to preach.
This is a wonderful one and a shocking one. Viewer, you've heard a lot about mission, but I'm going to ask Apostle Ikechukwu to just give, in 2 minutes, encourage somebody who wants to go for mission. Like I'm also thinking of going to African missions and go all. And there's still the fear of uncertainty, the resources to go and some of these things. And it might not be dramatic, or it might not be with that God told me to go here specifically, but we know that even in the going, because the final instruction is where God has given every believer that go ye therefore. So how?
There are two things here. You see, there are people that make themselves volunteers. And it is legitimate. God can conscript you on the basis of making yourself available. You see, that's the area people don't talk about. Many times we tend to talk about, are you sure God is the one sending you? God is the one calling you to that place. But we neglect another part. In Psalm 110, the Bible says, I think in verse 3, it says, in the day of your power, the people shall be willing. If you check it in that translation, I think NLT, it says, in the day of his power, the people shall be volunteers. So you can actually volunteer yourself to God. And on the basis of that volunteer, God can legitimize your call. It's possible. Many people don't know this. Now, if you look at, I can show you, we don't have time for that. I can show you examples of people who volunteer themselves. And on the basis of that volunteer, look at Eliezer, for example. It was not God that sent him to go and stop the plague by stabbing that man and the Moabitish woman. Yes. It wasn't God that sent him. It was the zeal. He was angry that why should this young man just go before the elders arrogantly and carry a lady and do. He said, he went. Then on that basis, now listen to what God said. He said, because Eliezer did this, I am establishing an eternal covenant with him. That was not the original plan. That was not the plan. That was something that happened on account of somebody's volunteer. Check the scripture. Till today, that covenant is standing because God does not lie. How did it happen? A man volunteered himself to end the plague by what? Putting an end to a harassment.
Volunteering himself to stand.
He volunteered himself. Now, David cried and said, oh, that someone will get me water from the well of Bethlehem. He didn't send anybody specifically. 3 young men came and volunteered themselves. Now, you know the story of those young men after. They became the mighty men of David.
Yes.
So people, when God is moving, somebody can stand and say, Lord, because I know the urgency of mission and I know that this is your eternal plan. So you are cashing into a program that heaven has already. Because the mandate is go into the world. So if you key into that mandate and say, Lord, I'm available. I want to go to. God can legitimize that call. Yes, it's part of God's program. People need to learn. We need to talk about this.
That's the message of the now.
And if that is the case, it means that God will also treat you on the basis of the one who was called, who was also sent. There's no partiality. There's no, it's not going to be just because this one is originally called by God to go. This one voluntarily. No, there will be no preference. It will still be the same service. And if your case is the case of volunteer and you are going, don't be afraid. I can tell you, I'm speaking to you not just as someone who has second-hand information on the matter. I'm speaking to you based on experience, life experience, practicable, tangible, palpable experience. That is me now. I'm telling you of the life I have lived, not the things I heard people preach. I've lived this life. I can tell you based on the palpability, the tangibility of my experience in the field that God can never forsake a missionary.
Wow.
Don't be afraid of, maybe no. God can send an angel from heaven to meet your need, and then before you know it, the person is gone. You won't find him. It has happened in a lot of places. God will meet your need. If you're a volunteer, as long as your motive is correct, forget it. God is going to take, care of your provisions. God is going to ensure that doors are open. Everything He is going to absolutely take care of it.
Wow.
I think the important part of this thing we have discussed is to let people know that we can be volunteers.
We can be volunteers.
Yes, we can be volunteers and then cash into God's program.
Wow. This is so deep. I don't know if you are hearing what I'm hearing right here. The studio, the environment here is supercharged for mission. So I'm going to ask one more thing just to add to it because of time.
Okay, sir.
And the first one is that there is the one that is called that you hear because it has been an argument for years. And this second one that you just broke the wall down, that if you volunteer with the right motive, God will treat you right.
God recognizes it and He will treat you equally.
Now, the final one I want to get us to get the people cleared is that what about the one that you are sent? Because there's an argument now that I'm not the one that is sent. Maybe we call it transfer, or somebody, they sent you, maybe in the ministry, like Dominion City now, they say, okay, you come here, you're transferred here. And because you feel like this is where you're supposed to be, or this is what you have done, I need you to also touch on that also. Does that also qualify the person also who is sent? Does it have the covering of a mission, or they say, go to Sokoto and go and serve? And you obediently go.
You are covered. You are covered. Now you are covered because the authority that is sending you is also recognized by heaven. And because that authority is recognized by heaven, you are covered. So you don't think of your deficiencies or your why are they sending me here? I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Even if you feel that God is not the one sending you, because the authority has sent you and that authority is recognized by God, obey and go. God is going to back you up. Don't rebel. If anything that you do against that command amounts to rebellion.
Oh, wow.
And that's not good for you.
Well, we are so blessed today. I'm so blessed. And I'm grateful to have you here, Apostle. We hope that by the time we reach out to you again, and when you come in to Nigeria again, we'll continue the next phase of your assignment.
Once again, it's my pleasure to be here. In fact, it's been I'm also charged myself because I believe that when God uses us to touch lives, it's a plus. That's why I tell people, I say, by and by, we will know those who truly lived. And life is all about impact. Because I believe that somebody is charged, somebody is encouraged on account of this broadcast.
Yes.
So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you
so much. And on that note, I would like to call it a wrap for today. I hope you've been blessed. And I hope that right now, with what you've heard Apostle Ikechukwu say, you begin to think about mission because there's provision. In fact, whenever you lack anything or around you, just check for one mission assignment, one instruction, because mission is based on instruction that God has asked you to accomplish. And if in case you don't have anyone, just step out there. Start from your own Jerusalem, from your neighborhood around you. It might not be to go as far as Brazil, to South America, or to Asia, to far end of the world, but start from where you are. From your next door neighbors, from your family, try to reach out, try to get the gospel through them, and you begin to get provision because right there, according to Apostle and the gospel, is that your provision is right there. My name still remains Dr. Gabriel Okonji, and I'm glad to be your host till I come your way next time. Stay blessed.
GMT.